Thank you. Wow. Thank you guys very much. Anybody out there like Omaha, Nebraska? It's my first time. My first time here. It was hot yesterday. I got off the plane. It was like 100 degrees. Just wow. I was with a friend who's from Omaha. She says, "Oh man, it's crazy. In the summertime, it gets so hot here that the firemen, they don't work on fires. They actually water the cows." Is that true? I was told that they literally spray the cows down with water so they don't die. And in the summer or in the wintertime, that if you inhale when it's real cold, your nose sticks together. Like literally, I heard that. Which is a decent segue to the opening of my talk. The only other place in the world I've been that has that extreme temperature range is Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. I suppose I got to start this thing here probably, right? Yeah, so in Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa, where are we? What I see right here is not happening right there. There we go. So yeah, Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. Some friends of mine and I, about 20 of us, I was the dirtbag of the group. It was with a handful of celebrities. We decided to climb Mount Kilimanjaro to raise awareness for clean water. Turns out that clean water or lack of access to clean water is the #1 cause of death and disease in the world. More than 1 billion people every day go without clean water. And so we were trying to raise awareness, and we were trying to do it in a way that no one else, as far as I know, had done it before. And that as we were walking up the mountainside, it was about a week-long journey, we were tweeting and Facebooking and posting blog posts about what we were learning about the clean water crisis and about our experiences climbing the mountain to signify the journey of solving that crisis. And as it turned out, it actually worked. We were tweeting, we had people back in the States tweeting, and we had enough cultural mass that we actually got in touch with Bono. And Bono actually got us in touch with Obama. So it was a really different solution to, and Obama actually started invoking some of the changes that we wanted in global water policy and whatnot. So it was a really creative way of reaching the president from a mountaintop in Africa. Another creative part of that trip was the way that we actually got water. Little teeny packets. It was a very, very creative solution from a company called P&G. You guys might have heard of them before. Tear the top off, just like a little emergency pack. You put it in a bucket of water. You stir that bucket of water for like 3 minutes, and then you pour that bucket of water, which you can see these kids doing here, into another bucket through a clean T-shirt, and voila, you've got clean drinking water. Also a very creative solution. So here's me at about 19,000 feet on our summit day. It's incredibly cold up there, and I'm walking. It's just you're sort of very alone, one step after another. It's dark. And I was thinking about these creative solutions, and it made me realize that creativity is literally the building block, the fundamental building block of the solution to every problem that the world has ever seen, has ever known, and ever will know. My mind just exploded. Because the next thought that I had was, well, we got a serious problem, because what we have is we have a culture that actually doesn't value creativity, and even worse, we have an education system that stomps it out. So I have a proposed solution. The reason I'm standing on this stage and have stood on stages all over the world is to help convince you that actually deciding to take a stand in favor of creativity, and that creativity is actually the new literacy. So what do I mean by that? Actually, I'd ask you guys to applaud that, because I believe very deeply that creativity is the new literacy. Some scientist somewhere told me if they clap, it's like a dog with treats. Creativity and literacy, you do something. So now every time you clap, you're going to think about that. So what is literacy? Well, obviously literacy is the ability to write and read. But let's talk about its history. So in the 1400s, pre-sort of popular literacy, literacy was reserved for the clergy, for the very, very wealthy, for the royalty. And it was bad, right? Because the world did not have that. Then this wonderful invention, this piece of technology came along called the printing press. And starting with the printing press, we began to, as a culture, program for literacy. A little piece of technology and the belief that to be able to read was giving access to information, to health benefits, to the way the world works. And the period before the printing press is called the Dark Ages. The period after the printing press is called the Enlightenment. So if you start to think about the parallels, like before valuing creativity, the line that I'm trying to make in the sand, and post believing that creativity actually is a new literacy, we can really change the world. So today, ironically, we're the most literate of ever before, but our relationship with creativity is positively medieval. So again, this means that we actually value creativity and we put it on the same plane as literacy. Try and get that in your brain. I'm going to give you a little 3-act play here. We've only got 30 minutes. I want to save some room for Q&A afterwards. But Act 1 of my 3-act play starts with this. What is creativity? Creativity is the act of taking something that didn't exist and making it something. So going from nothing to something. Ideally, you make something useful. That process involves tinkering and involves sort of messing around and experimentation. It tends to be a little bit renegade. It's ignoring things that have been before and thinking of them in a new way to output something that's different. There's a little bit of a renegade spirit in that creativity. So certainly this is creative, right? This is beautiful. Michelangelo. This is the Snake River and the Grand Teton from Ansel Adams. The music of Paul McCartney and the Beatles, obviously very creative. But this is a really important thing that I need everyone, especially in this audience, to understand, that art is but a teeny subset of creativity. It's a great access to creativity with a capital C, but it's just a small subset of the bigger part of creativity. So what is creativity with the capital C? Creativity with a capital C is all of those things. It is this. The way that it's, I would say, equal and even more important, the creative way in which MLK approached the human rights issues. He not only had a new vision, but a great way of getting there. This is incredibly creative. This is Felix Baumgartner jumping out of a balloon from how many godzillion thousand feet above the planet. It's a very, very creative way to test what's possible for a human being to do. This right here, this is actually creativity applied to mechanical engineering. That's what got us the wheel. Same with this, electricity. It's creativity applied to electrical engineering. Even this, creativity applied to pure theoretical science. Fundamental building block of that right there is Mr. Einstein putting 2 and 2 together because he was in his garage tinkering. He knew that he could come up with something new and different. And he had it right. He said that imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited, and imagination encircles the world. So let me ask you a question here. There's a fundamental approach to who is creative. By a show of hands, hold on just one second. Tell me if you were ever told to do something more practical or something you were going to get a better job or something that wasn't creative just because it was the right thing to do. Be diligent. Show of hands, who was told at some point to do that? Any point in your career. Looks like there's about 2/3. That pretty much matches. You guys are weak-ass hand raisers. Put that shit in the air. There you go. Sorry about that. We are programmed to shy away from creativity that's somehow less practical. You were also probably told at some point, many of you, that you weren't creative. My mom was told that she wasn't creative her whole life. I'll tell you a story about her a little bit later. And this whole right brain, left brain, how many people think they're left brain? You guys are, maybe that's good. How many people were told they were right brain? Is this the weak-ass hand raise crowd, or is this? Never mind. The point is that all that shit is also false. That's just a convenient, like literally, it's false. There's no such thing as right brain, left brain. It's just a convenient way of explaining it, and it's not accurate. So who is creative? I'm here to tell you. Actually, it's going to be backed up by a guy named Mark Runco, who's from the University of Georgia. He did this amazing study trying to illustrate to the world that everyone is creative. He took the most creative students he could find at the University of Georgia, the music department, and he took the most analytical, linear thinking, as I think he said it, group, the engineers. He gave them a creativity test, basically that tested basic creative aptitude, and guess what happened? They scored on the exact same spectrum. So, the idea that some of you in the audience are creative and some of you aren't, that's completely false. It is fundamental to being human that you are creative. It defines you as something different than a lot of the other species on the planet. And you've probably heard Noam Chomsky, famous linguist, talk about us being hardwired for language. We're hardwired for creativity, you guys, I promise. You have to believe this. So 2 takeaways. 1, we're all creative. 2, we owe it to ourselves and our culture to prioritize creativity. It's not a talent. It is a way of thinking. It's a mode of operating. So who is creative? You is creative. Now, Act 2 of my 3-act play, but we got to be honest, right? shit is clearly broken because we have a system that actually isn't aligned with this value. And fortunately, this is an amazing group of people. I think, I'm sort of preaching to the crowd a little bit, but I can see, I got some doubters, especially you in the front row that didn't raise your hand for shit. But, it's not happening. We give lip service to it, but it's really not there. So here's me at 25. Now, this is me at age 2. I was a very creative kid. I was only child, so my parents were very constructive. They said, here's a block of wood. Go play in the backyard for like 6 hours. And I sat at the dinner table with my parents because there was no kids' table. It was very good, actually, for my imagination. Again, but this is what kids do. They ride horses naked in the front room when they're 2. There's this beautiful expression of pure creativity. This is my first film, fighting. I was stabbed. There goes the evil guy. Yes, my friends were tending to me. What happened? Well, that turns out that guy had stolen the princess. Close up. My homies go to avenge my being stabbed. That's obviously a bad guy. He's got a pirate hat on. They go back and they grab the princess who had been stolen, return the princess to the queen, reunited. I'm still wounded, but my friends are cool. One for all for one, and we run off into the sunset. All right. Thank you. So that actually was in the sunset. That was Brock Zylstra's driveway, but you get the picture. And a little bit more detail than you want, but I love telling this story. We raised the money to rent the camera and buy the film by washing cars in our neighborhood for a month. And then we screened this film. It did not win any Academy Awards, I will tell you, especially not for cinematography. You see that? It was terrible. And it was a sold-out audience of 26, and we actually made more money than we spent, which is a lesson for startups. Maybe they should think about that. I don't know. I'm a victim of that. I'll get back to that later. So that was me at age 6. We already talked about me at age 2. Here's me at age 10. That's actual cardboard, and those are legit parachute pants, I swear. So many zippers on those pants, it was crazy. But the reality is that we were dancing in the streets, literally, to express ourselves, to be creative. This is me at 10, actual cardboard. Check out that headband thing. Yeah, I have a headband on my leg, too. You can't actually see that, but... And this is me at 12. Skate punk. Again, it's the connection between athleticism and creativity. There's music involved, a lot of spray painting, graffiti. It's where sort of design started touching sport. We listened to Minor Threat. Our favorite skaters were Rob Roskopf and used kids in the 80s out there. I'm talking about right now. Then, put me in junior high school and high school and let the anti-creativity programming begin. This is the part that it freaks me out. All that creativity from my childhood it started to get systematically stomped out when I went to 7th grade. I barely escaped. Again, I'll share that Act 3 with you. But there's a reason, and there's 2 fundamental reasons. One, the farm. So our schools having the summer off. Now, this is probably the most agricultural audience I've ever spoke to, but the reason that we have schools off in the summer is so that the kids can literally go pick the crops. I don't know how many of you are parents out there, but somewhere on June 15th, do you send the kids out to pick the crops? I highly doubt it, and it's definitely not the case in 99% of the places I speak all over the world. Are we supposed to believe that this schedule is actually the most optimum way for our kids to learn? Certainly not. This is even worse, actually, the factory, because beginning with the Industrial Revolution, we started treating kids and schools like factories. What do factories do? Factories take all this raw material, they put it in one end, and then they make widgets. They put widgets through the system at a certain pace, and out comes a bunch of things that look the same. Now, if you take that and you apply that to our school system, we do the same thing. We take these kids that are riding horses naked, that are making films on their own, that are skateboarding and breakdancing, and we put them in one end of this funnel, and we systematically break them down. We move them through the factory at the same pace. We teach them the same things. Even if they don't know it, we kind of move them on because it's more important to get kids out the other end than give them what they need. That is bad. So if we want a more creative society, We need an educational system that values creativity and innovation, which is something that's much different than what's happening right now. So this newspaper, I was walking down the street in Portland. It was one of the first days of July last year, and this headline struck me. $1.1 trillion. That is student debt in our country. It's bigger than credit card debt. That's insane. And that number, 1 in 8 in the lower left corner there, that's the number of students that owe more than $50,000. And this number over here, 31%, that's the number of students, that's the percent increase in the last 5 years of people who've been asking for loans. This here number, that is the average debt that students from 2014 are going to graduate college with. $35,200. That means for everyone who only graduates with $10,000, there's somebody who graduates with $60,000 in debt. So not only do we put them in a school system that doesn't serve them, that doesn't value creativity, we don't value creativity as a culture, but then we attach this ball, this $35,000 ankle weight to them. No wonder there are economic crises in our country, because we can't, those folks enter the workforce, they can't buy homes, they can't invest in the community, in the country. And there's also this thing that's going on. You got all those stats, but there's this narrative that kills me. The narrative goes like this. If it doesn't sound familiar, then someone can come up here and knock me off the stage. If you get good grades, then you can go to college, and if you go to college, then you will get a good job. Live happily ever after. Here's the facts, people. That narrative is false. It is. It's just false. So, without going into, Antonio talked about my foray into CreativeLive. I can talk to you all about that individually. I don't want to preach from the stage. But I'm tired of that narrative, because that narrative is only true if you go to Ivy League schools, and here's all the schools, here's an Ivy League school. So we have to stop preaching that. We need a complete reinvention of educational system. 1,500, this is an awesome number one, right? Foam finger. 1,500 CEOs, you know what the number one leadership competency was? Number one. Take a guess. I want to hear it. Creativity. Then why in the hell aren't we programming for creativity? Business starts to understand it, but our culture and our school system don't. If this is, it's not reflected anywhere. That drives me crazy. 67% of millennials, they want a career that allows them to be creative on a regular basis. And I know, you guys, I'm an artist, you expected to get something very different than a bunch of stats, but this is the reality. 75% of people say they're not living up to their creative potential. 75, that's not 25 or 35. 3 out of every 4 people want to be more creative. Sweet. Act 3 of my 3-act play, what you gonna do? Now, I know that the internet is made of cats, for one. And I know that the internet loves top 10 lists, and I know you love the internet, therefore you love top 10 lists. So top 10 things, this is actually kind of, I put it in a little goofy framework, but these are legitimately things. I wanted you guys to have some takeaway, so it wasn't all doom and gloom up here from the stage with Chase Jarvis. Things you can actually do to make yourself more creative, and I want you to take away a couple of these, please. Number 10 in a list of 10 is pursue a creative craft. This is something you can start today. You have iPhone in your pocket, you have an Android in your pocket. Taking pictures every day literally unlocks creativity. It's reprogramming the neural pathways in your brain. It's the first step in living a more creative life, is do something like that. Pursue some craft, whether it's needlepoint, photography, painting, coding. Do something that unlocks that creativity with the big C. Just in the same way that exercising regularly and eating well is a fundamental building block to health, a simple creative craft is a fundamental building block to unlocking creativity with a capital C. To support this, I'm going to show you a picture. That's my mom on the right, my Aunt Barbie on the left, my mom Joy. And my mom Joy, as I mentioned before, she was told her whole life she wasn't creative. And she sort of just dealt with it. Okay, I'm more of one of those left-brain people. I'm more into numbers and whatnot. It totally wasn't true. In 2010, as Antonia's mic was cutting out, I don't know if you guys heard that, I was fortunate enough to create the first iPhone app that shared images to social networks. Went to number 1 in the App Store, was App of the Year for Wired Magazine, New York Times, Macworld. I did not get in on that damn $1 billion from Instagram, though. That being said, created the first iPhone app that shared images to social networks. Empowered with that app and an iPhone, my mom started taking pictures. And in a matter of weeks, not months, not years, but weeks, she became the most creative of all her friends. Her Facebook feed, like, she was just getting people coming out of the woodwork that she hadn't talked to in 10 years saying, "Oh my God, Joy, I had no idea you were so creative." And this is true. I've mentored thousands of photographers from every country in the world, and the same is true. The idea of actually taking pictures, it unlocks something in you. So that's number 10. Number 9 is space. Not space like space, but space. There's a reason that you get great ideas in the shower. It's because there's almost no noise. You're free to think. Great ideas don't come from the chaos. Whether you can get out, and it doesn't have to be moved to Paris and wear a beret and a cigarette and now I'm going to be creative. That's pretty good, right? J'habite à Paris, something like that. Anyway, you just need some space, whether that space is a walk every day, whether it's a meditation. Give yourself a little bit of space. Now, there's this great book. Play is number 8. There's a great book that just came on the market by a guy named Charlie Hone. I don't know if you know Charlie. Charlie might even be here. Charlie helped Tim Ferriss launch a couple of Tim's books. And in the process of doing so, he nearly worked himself to death, created a ton of anxiety in his life. He wrote a book called Play. And what play means to me, his book is called, Play It Away. And that it is anxiety that we have from working so hard. If you can take 30 minutes in a day and get out and exercise or do something that you love. For Charlie, it was playing home run derby. He went and bought a couple of bats and like 100 baseballs and goes to his local like little baseball diamond down the street, hits 100 home runs. And how fun is that? And it costs him like $50, $100. And he does that for half an hour and then goes home. We all can have our own thing, but playing, again, creates space, which creates the ability to be more creative. That's my wife, Kate, on a motorcycle in Greece. We're playing there. Find your tribe. It's now easier than ever before to find other people like you. If you are a person who wants to paint portraits of dead presidents on Tuesday and sell them for 50 grand, there's probably like 2,000 of you people. The internet has made it so easy to find your tribe. Finding your tribe is huge for unlocking creativity. There are people that are like-minded that will help you understand, help you solve your problems. Get feedback, give feedback. Find your tribe. Number 7. Number 6, show your work. Good friend of mine, Austin Kleon, great guy. If you don't know about Austin, you should definitely check him out. There's a saying, like, not making something and not showing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it to somebody. Work should be shared, especially if your goal is to create creativity. All right, this is an interesting one for me, especially number 5. That happens to be Macklemore. He's a living example of how imperfection and iteration can affect your work. Now, what I'm about to show you is Macklemore about, I think it's 2009, living in his parents' basement at the time. And what you're going to see is the first time he's performed a blend of 2 songs that are on his album, The Heist, which, in case you haven't checked, it's 15 million singles sold, independent artist, did it all on his own. And what you're going to see, I think, underpins this idea of imperfection.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Hey! Hi, my name is Chuck Norris. You guys think I look like a young Chuck Norris?
To me, you look I'm sorry, Matt.
I like it. How many people have ever had a pair of Air Jordans in their life? Yeah. One time. I might have to look at a piece of paper to remember this. But that's okay. That's okay. It goes like, make the money, don't let the money make you. Change the game, but don't let the game change you. To hip hop, I'll forever remain faithful. To all my people, stay true. And I said, make the money. Don't let the money make you. Change the game. Don't let the game change you. To hip hop, I'll forever remain faithful. To all my people, stay true. Now, I was 7 years old when I got my first pair. And I went outside. And I said, Mama, this air bubble here, this is gonna make me fly. I hit that court. And when I jumped, I swore that I got so high, I touched the net. Mom, I touched the net. This is the best day of my life. Air Maxes were next. That air bubble, that mesh, the box, the smell, the stuff in the laces, the tread, that texture, red. At school, I was so cool, and I knew that I couldn't increase.
That goes on for another about 10 minutes. So does that look like one of the most famous musical performers of all time right there? It certainly doesn't. You see how nervous he is. He's comfortable. He's reading from a page. And those are amongst his friends. That's in a dinner party in my studio in Seattle. So iteration and what was it? Iteration? Yep. And imperfection. Those things are required. That's I'm also going to give Macklemore number 4 here. Put more of you into your work. Those were incredibly personal stories. I mean, what rapper? You know where hip hop came from. It was all about being a big baller and rolling tough and having all kinds of cash and girls. Have you listened to the words from Thrift Shop? He's literally buying things that are 99 cents. He's wearing the same clothes as his grandpa. He's using his grandpa's car. Completely zagging when everyone else is zigging because that's who he is. And look what that did to his career. By being willing to speak out, he was able to put more of himself in his work. You guys can do that too. Sweet mustache. Number 3, if you are doubting, you are doing it right. You guys, my monitor just went silly up here, by the way. If you are doubting, you're doing it right. I have been a professional creative for basically my whole adult life. And do I doubt? I was scared to death when I hit publish on that iPhone app in 2009. I was scared to death when a new campaign hits the newsstand. Scared to death to launch a company called CreativeLive, which is revolutionizing how we educate by connecting the world's top instructors with millions of people all over the world. I was terrified. So if you're doubting yourself when you hit send on that blog post, that Medium post, that Instagram, you're doing it right. Number 2, make something every day. I said it before, there's a neuroscientist by the name of Rex Young who did the research for me. I don't have to tell you that literally creating things creates new neural pathways. Make something every day, even if it's a photograph. And number 1, I'll tell you a quick story. I was fortunate enough to be doing some work with Apple, and I was walking up to, you guys familiar with the company called Apple? Okay, small company down in California. I was walking in the door at One Infinite Loop, and I was on my phone, and I looked up, and who's holding the door for me but Steve Jobs? I don't even remember what I said. I was very shocked, and I get to work with celebrities all the time. I'm not really a shell-shocked sort of guy. I just sort of fumbled my way in there, and he closed the door. Hey, you guys fixed it. Nice one. And as he's walking away, I snapped this picture with my iPhone because the best camera is the one that's with you, in case you didn't know that. So I used the best camera I had with me, and I took a picture, and that's Steve on the right and Johnny Ive on the left. And you can see how frail Steve is. This was not long before he passed away. And he said something that I think is incredibly powerful, and on my number 1 list of top 10 to think about being creative, he said, remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or fear of failure, these things, they just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking that you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. Now it's my job to wrap this sucker up. Look around at our heroes, the Steve Jobses, the the Bill Gateses, the Amelia Earharts, the Rosa Parkses. They are all incredibly creative. It's not an accident that the people that we value as a culture have taken risks. And it used to be that our heroes took the risky paths. That was risky for Bill Gates to drop out of Microsoft or drop out of Harvard to go start Microsoft. But today, I wanted to share with you that I believe it's actually more risky to take the traditional route. That route is eroding, it's rotting, certainly in education, but I would argue the same be true for life. So if we're going to solve the world's biggest and the most complex problems, we cannot stand back and wait for another MLK. We can't wait for a Rosa Parks. We can't sit back and wait anymore. We must cultivate those people now. I have a strong feeling that the people in this audience that literally let creativity be your guide, and let someone in this room, or 5 of you or 10 of you in this room, be the next Steve Jobs. That's all I got. Thank you.
Give it up for Chase Jarvis. Chase, you cool to do a couple of questions?
Hey, I know I'm a little bit long, but I'm dying since maybe you guys had a technical difficulty. I get some time to ask answer some
Absolutely,
questions.
Absolutely.
Cool. It's good.
Yeah.
To know
If you have a question for Chase, please.
If
you have a question for Chase, please line up behind the microphones. We have time for a few questions. Chase at Big Omaha, I asked the first question.
Oh shit.
That's what's up. My first question is, you said if you go I'm paraphrasing, if you go the traditional route, that's the riskiest route. You didn't talk much about CreativeLive, but based on your talk, can you just share the audience a little bit about, again, looking at that loan number at the beginning, the debt, et cetera, but CreativeLive, the vision, how that plays into what you shared today.
Sure. The shortest version of CreativeLive is it's a live education platform that connects the world's best, Pulitzer Prize winners, New York Times bestsellers, literally the best in the world in photo, video, art and design, music and audio, the maker and craft movements, and business and money, with a global audience for free. Anybody in the world can watch for free while the programming is live. And instead of a TED Talk being 18 minutes, this is 1, 2, or 3 days of education, free education from that same quality of person. So if you want to, anyone in the world can watch for free. If you want to own a copy of that content, then you buy it. So it's a freemium model. It's literally open to anyone in the world with an internet connection. I'm very proud to say that we have delivered more than 1 billion minutes of free education to more than 2 million people in every country on the planet so far. And we're just getting started. So thanks. Again, it's called CreativeLive.com. So, teachers that are on that network are Reid Hoffman, for example. You want to learn about entrepreneurism? That's a pretty good guy to learn from. Tim Ferriss launched The 4-Hour Chef on that network. You want to learn photography? Learn it from Pulitzer Prize winner Vince LaForêt. So, the list goes on. I encourage you to check it out. Thanks, Tony, for the question.
You got another question right over here.
Shoot it.
I think there are probably a lot of engineers in the room, and I probably fall into that category. And I see myself as someone who's really good at attacking problems that I see in front of me, but I really struggle when the problem or the thing to work on is not clear, or I don't see a clear question, and I find myself not figuring out how to be creative or think creatively in those situations. So do you have any advice for people like the engineer type?
Absolutely. I got 2 pieces of advice. One, try and think about the problem from a completely different way. Walk away, do something completely unrelated to the work that you're doing, and come back. Just that little simple exercise of walking away has a profound impact on the brain's ability to disjoint with what you're trying to solve and then reapply itself. I think maybe even a more comprehensive solution is collaborate. Find your tribe. There are, my whole career prior to becoming the CEO at CreativeLive was as a professional creative. I created all over the world for 15 years. And I also, despite believing in this, that everyone is creative, there are parts of that equation that I couldn't solve. And so what did I do? I would find co-conspirators. There's never been a better time to find a co-conspirator. And in fact, let's be honest, it's the first time in the history of the world that we require permission from nobody to do what we want to do. Honestly. That there used to be control by the gatekeepers. If you wanted to get your photographs out there, you had to have permission from a gallerist. You had to have a relationship with the art buyer or the art director. No longer. We can share our work at scale now without permission from anyone. First time in the history of the world. So, those people in that tribe, in that community that can help you break through, they are in your world. They can help you see a problem. You don't have to solve every problem by yourself. And that's one of the things, as a CEO, I end up working with. We have a lot of engineers at CreativeLive. And to see them collaborating with the product team, for example, with someone, even with a designer, I see it unlock problems all the time. So, 2 pieces of feedback on that one. You got it.
Let's go across the room over here.
Hello.
Excellent. Hey,
tell me who you are. Just not. I don't want to.
Okay, my name is Mark. I'm from Lincoln. I love your program. I love your program, especially with Julian Smith. Buddy. You bet. I've watched your interview with Julian Smith several times because I love it so much, and in watching you with like Brene Brown and talking to people about kind of getting over that hump and putting yourself out there. Besides like the misnomer of being right or left brain, what are some other things do you think that as fundamental as humans that hold us back from kind of going out that? Because I love the stuff that you have about finding a tribe and everything, but
sure. Are
there other things that you've noticed in all your interviews that are kind of common themes that people had to get over, like obstacles or mental kind of things?
Sure. Well, they wouldn't be in my top 10 because I just gave you that. Number 11, no, it's something that's not listed in that top 10. Let me think on that one. I think actually the strongest one that maybe is a sort of an umbrella concept is the belief that you can. I think there's that sign that saying that whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. To me, that is the biggest hurdle towards accomplishing anything, regardless of stature or whether it's creative in the classic sense or not. So the belief in yourself. And how does that happen? That happens. That's one of the reasons I'm encouraging people to make something and share every day, because that breaks down that barrier between you and what people are going to think. So if you get in a habit of that, that habit, again, sort of unlocks what is possible. And when you start to see what's possible, it allows you to make big bets. Gretzky, I think, said you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
That's exactly what I wanted you to say. I just wanted everybody else to hear that. Thank you.
That's right, brother. Thank you.
All right, we got 2 last questions. Let's go right over here, please.
2 last questions.
Hey, my name's David Spinks. And so you've had the opportunity to interview a whole lot of people and work with a lot of really successful people. What's your best advice for building relationships and getting to meet new people?
Great question. There is, for every person who's achieved a great deal of success, there are things that person, he or she, does not know. And finding a way to help them first without asking something from them is by far the best way. I get 800 emails a day, and 40 of them say, "Hi Chase, I'm a beginning photographer," or "I want to start my own business. Can you review my website? Can you look at my work?" What I hear is, "Hi Chase, we've never met before. Can I have an hour of your time?" And it's very hard because more than anything in the world, I want to help. I mean, I created a company that's based on helping people for free. But if what you're asking is how to get a response from that person to, as you said, sort of meet people who've done it, find a way, A, to get in their network, and B, to deliver value to them over and over and over without asking for it, without asking anything from them. And what that is, it's most likely a relationship introduction. Think of the most accomplished person you know. Say, I'm friends with these people. They actually might even be here. Ev Williams might be in the house, or Kevin Rose. Or say say you want to get to Tim Ferriss, who's also a dear friend. I think he's been on the stage before. If I had someone in my network that I knew because let's say Tim comes out with a book called The 4-Hour Chef. He obviously is interested in food. Just so happens my brother's cousin's aunt is the most famous chef in New York. "Hey, Tim, this is Chase. I love your book, For Our Chef, and you probably have all kinds of relationships, but I know the most famous chef in New York, and I wanted to connect you guys via email." Like, that is a genuine giving of some value and asking nothing in return. And if you can do that 4 or 5 times, Tim will most definitely know who you are. And then when you do ask something from Tim, he will respond.
Thanks.
Spoken.
Great. Last question right over here.
Last question.
So for me, one of the fundamental pieces of creativity is risk-taking. And I live and I work in a very small town in the Midwest, and risk-taking is not a part of our culture. So how do we create or generate that culture of risk-taking so that people feel like they can step out there and they can do those things?
Does anybody have the answer for him? You have nothing to lose. You are already naked, my friend. You have nothing to lose. At the end of this whole program, when you're lying on your deathbed, are you going to wish that you worked more? Are you going to wish that you didn't take chances? Are you going to wish that you had not taken a risk on that thing that you're asking me about right now?
But how do you convince other people that that is true?
Show, don't tell. You got to live it, brother. Cool. Now, if I was the announcer and I'm not, I would say, all right, folks, that about wraps it up, because I think that's what Tony's about to say.
How'd you guess? Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Chase
I love you,
Jarvis.
Omaha. Thank you.